What if I told you that behind the faces of trusted doctors, helpful police officers, or even an innocent neighbor, some of history's most sinister minds have hidden in plain sight? These aren't just the villains of horror movies, they're real, and their stories are more chilling than any fictional tale. Get ready for a dark journey into the lives of the top 10 serial killers with the highest victim counts. But fair warning, this isn't for the faint of heart. Are you brave enough to uncover the terrifying truths behind their deadly legacies? Buckle up. It's about to get grimly fascinating. Number 10. Harold Shipman, Dr. Death. Harold Shipman, a trusted British physician, turned out to be one of the most prolific serial killers in modern history, earning him the chilling nickname Dr. Death. Over a span of more than 2 decades, Shipman is believed to have murdered up to 250 of his patients. His modus operandi involved administering lethal doses of diamorphine, typically targeting elderly women who trusted him implicitly. Shipman maintained his facade of a caring doctor so convincingly that his victims' deaths were often dismissed as natural. It wasn't until the late 1990s, when a colleague noticed suspicious patterns in death certificates linked to Shipman, that his reign of terror was exposed. Convicted of 15 murders in 2000, Shipman was sentenced to life in prison, but committed suicide in 2004, leaving many unanswered questions. His case sparked a massive overhaul in medical oversight in the UK, including stricter monitoring of prescriptions and patient deaths. Number 9. Samuel Little, the choke and stroke killer. Samuel Little stands out not only for his high victim count, but for the methodical way in which he evaded detection for decades. Operating across 19 U.S. states from 1970 to 2005, Little targeted vulnerable women, particularly those marginalized by society, such as sex workers and drug addicts. His preferred method was strangulation, leaving behind little forensic evidence. What's haunting about Little is his near photographic memory. He was able to draw detailed sketches of his victims years after their deaths. His confessions to 93 murders, of which 60 have been confirmed, make him the most prolific serial killer in U.S. history. Little died in prison in 2020, but his case underscores the importance of prioritizing cases involving marginalized victims who are often overlooked by law enforcement. Number 8. Yang Xinhai, the monster killer. Yang Xinhai terrorized rural China between 1999 and 2003, committing some of the most gruesome crimes in modern history. Dubbed the Monster Killer, Yang broke into homes at night, murdering entire families with weapons like axes and hammers. His spree claimed 67 lives and left countless others traumatized. Yang targeted homes indiscriminately, and his motive appeared to stem from a deep-seated resentment of society. After his arrest in 2003, Yang showed no remorse, even stating that he felt his victims deserved to die. His execution in 2004 brought an end to a reign of terror that had paralyzed rural communities. Yang's case prompted China to increase rural law enforcement presence and improve crime scene investigation techniques. Number 7. Kempatomar Shankaraya, the stone-cold killer. Kempatomar Shankaraya's crimes were as baffling as they were brutal. Active in Rajasthan, India, during the late 1970s, Shankaraya killed over 70 people, striking his victims on the head with a hammer. What's chilling is that he had no apparent motive beyond a twisted satisfaction in taking lives. His arrest in 1978 shocked the nation, and his trial was swift. Before his execution in 1979, Shankaraya expressed regret, warning others against following his path. His story is a grim reminder that serial killers aren't always driven by complex psychological motives. Sometimes, sheer cruelty and disregard for life are the only explanations. Number 6. Pedro Rodrigues Filho, Pedrinho Matador, Little Pedro the Killer. Pedro Rodrigues Filho, Brazil's infamous Pedrinho Matador, is a killer who targeted other criminals, earning him a complex reputation as a vigilant. Born into a life of violence, Filho claimed his first victim at the age of 14. Over the years, he killed drug dealers, gang members, and even a prison guard while incarcerated. Despite his crimes, many in Brazil view him as a twisted anti-hero who cleaned up the streets. Filho was sentenced to 128 years in prison, but was released in 2018 due to Brazil's maximum sentence law. His interviews post-release reveal a man seemingly at peace with his past, though his actions leave a legacy of moral ambiguity. Number 5. Daniel Camargo Barbosa, the Colombian killer. Daniel Camargo Barbosa was a calculating predator who targeted young girls in Colombia and Ecuador during the 1970s and 1980s. Known for his intelligence, Barbosa would lure his victims with promises of gifts or employment before attacking them. After escaping from prison in Colombia, he fled to Ecuador, where he continued his killing spree. His eventual capture in 1986 was a relief to communities devastated by his actions. Barbosa was murdered in prison in 1994 by another inmate, but his legacy remains one of cold, calculated violence. His case highlighted the challenges of cross-border law enforcement in Latin America, spurring reforms in extradition treaties and information sharing. Number 4. Mikhail Popkov, the werewolf. Mikhail Popkov, a former police officer in Russia, exploited his position of authority to commit some of the most heinous crimes in modern history. Between 1992 and 2010, Popkov murdered 78 women, often luring them under the guise of offering them safe rides. His methods were brutal. Many victims were raped and mutilated. Popkov's double life as a family man and law enforcement officer made his capture all the more shocking. After his conviction in 2015, Popkov showed no remorse, even expressing pride in cleansing society. His case prompted significant scrutiny of law enforcement practices in Russia and raised awareness about the dangers of institutional trust being exploited by predators. Number 3. Javed Iqbal, the Pakistani predator. Javed Iqbal's crimes shook Pakistan to its core. Operating in Lahore during the late 1990s, Iqbal lured runaway boys to his home, where he strangled them and dissolved their bodies in acid. He meticulously documented his crimes, leaving detailed notes and even photos as a form of twisted confession. His arrest in 1999 led to a highly publicized trial, where he was sentenced to be executed in the same manner as his victims. However, Iqbal was found dead in his cell in 2001 under mysterious circumstances, leaving many questions unanswered. His case exposed the vulnerabilities of street children in Pakistan and sparked nationwide calls for better child protection policies. Number 2. Pedro Alonso Lopes, the monster of the Andes. Pedro Alonso Lopes's crimes are as horrifying as they are vast. Confessing to the murders of over 300 girls across Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador, Lopes became known as the monster of the Andes. His reign of terror began in the 1970s, and he often targeted young girls from impoverished communities. Arrested in Ecuador in 1980, Lopes was convicted of 110 murders, but released in 1998 due to lenient laws. His current whereabouts are unknown, adding an unsettling layer to an already terrifying story. Lopes's case remains a glaring example of systemic failures in international law enforcement and the challenges of tracking transnational criminals. Number 1. Luis Garavito, La Bestia, the Beast. Luis Garavito's crimes are unparalleled in their brutality and scale. Known as La Bestia, Garavito targeted street children in Colombia, luring them with promises of food or money. Between 1992 and 1999, he tortured and killed 193 boys, though the true number could be higher. His capture in 1999 was a turning point, but his sentencing under Colombian law allowed for a maximum term of 40 years, a fact that outraged the public. Garavito's death in 2023 closed a dark chapter, but his crimes continue to serve as a grim reminder of the vulnerabilities of impoverished children and the need for robust child protection measures worldwide. That's all for today's video. If you found this journey through the chilling lives of history's darkest minds as fascinating as it was haunting, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. And hey, turn on that notification bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, stay curious and stay safe.